My guest today is Arie Scherson, a co-founder of Blue Dot Holdings, a constellation of e-commerce businesses where they start, buy, and build e-commerce businesses. Thanks a lot for coming to the podcast, Arie.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
Today, the total portfolio has 6 companies with a total revenue of over 10 million US dollars. And I found a short description of you with a strong background in business operations and a deep understanding of the e-commerce landscape. Arie is dedicated to helping brands enhance efficiency, drive revenue growth, and build omnipresence across social media. His unique blend of skills makes him a valuable asset in the e-commerce industry. Please tell me, where did it all start and how did you become an expert in what you do today?
Thanks, man. Well, it all began 8 years ago. So I was watching YouTube videos. I've always loved watching YouTube videos. Ever since I was little, I feel like I grew up with YouTube, more so even than like normal TV. So one day, it was my first year in college, actually, I stumbled across a video. I think it was a Ty Lopez video, but he was with another guy talking about how he was selling print-on-demand shirts and making all this money without ordering inventory. And at the time, I was starting to think a little bit about entrepreneurship because I wasn't really exactly happy with, I was working a job and going to school, and I just wanted to make more money, quite frankly. It was very simple. I just wanted to make more money. So I started to try to do side hustles, sold things on eBay, thrifted things. So there's thrift stores in my city. I would go find little items that I thought were cool, and I would sell them on eBay, things like that. But then when I saw that ad, I was like, I could do this much more efficiently. So I started to look into it. I actually bought a course even from that guy. I didn't learn much from the course besides Shopify is a great platform to host any sort of product, and you kind of own all your data, as opposed to eBay where you're kind of at the mercy of eBay. Because by then, actually, eBay had banned me. I didn't make a lot of money at all, maybe $3,000 on eBay in a span of 6 months, which I was happy with because it's all I knew and I just wanted to make more money. But Shopify seemed great. So I tried it, and I also learned from that course Facebook ads. That's the main way that people would drive traffic to Shopify. So I tried it. I always just kind of move quick. So I experimented with it, lost a ton of money on Facebook ads, $800 at the time, which was huge. But I wasn't very discouraged. I don't know. I think I've always been a learner, so I feel like I learned a lot from it. And I just kept progressing. Eventually, I found a product that I thought was super cool. And I was able to drop ship it because that was the model that they were teaching. They were teaching print on demand, but also not just print on demand, this model of buying a product as soon as somebody buys it from you, which is how print on demand works. So I did that. I actually remember exactly the first product. It was this light up lamp that was like a Death Star from Star Wars. And it was super cool, and I'd never seen anything like it. So I was like, oh, that looks cool. And I tested it with Facebook ads, and I got 2 sales that first day. And I was mind blown. Come to find out, of course, you can't sell licensed products. So I ended up getting my store taken down. But yeah, just a ton of lessons. But yeah, it started about 8 years ago, which is crazy to think about.
And you were watching this video on YouTube, but at the same time you started sharing your journey, or where did the YouTube part came, buying a mic and just start recording yourself?
Yeah, so that part came 2.5 years into my ecom journey. So about 6 years ago. And basically how that came about is, I always watched YouTube videos. So naturally, I feel like when you ask someone these days, what do they want to be when they grow up? They say YouTuber or something like that. And I think it's mainly because they just watch all these YouTubers and it looks fun, and it is fun. And at the time, I didn't want to necessarily be a YouTuber, but I started to see some people posting online about e-commerce and just general business. So, and this is what I was doing a lot. I was super passionate about it by then. 2 years in, I had tested maybe 15 different products, ideas. and did find one that was actually making me consistent money, like 10K a month in revenue or so. So I was like, you know what I see out there is like not really great information. Like I don't really learn much from the YouTube videos that I'm watching at this point. And YouTube looks fun. It could be an extra income source. Let me do it. So yeah, I just actually grabbed my phone and I just started making videos with my phone. That was like the very beginning of it.
And you mentioned you tried like 15 different products and ideas, and the one you had success. What was were you working all the time while doing all this, or when was the time you were able to go like really all in with both YouTube and the business?
Yeah, so actually at the time it was crazy, but I was working. So I was pursuing a double major in college, first of all, in economics and business administration. So my university allowed you to do 2 majors if you were an economics major, because it required less credits to graduate. So I was pursuing a double major, and I was working as a server at like a pretty high-end restaurant, which was really good money, like funding money, because you would make tips. So every night I would walk out with a little bit of cash. And then on the side, building my store. Yeah, I mean, I was just finding every bit of time that I could. Like I really enjoyed the process a lot. So it felt kind of like a video game. And again, like this idea of like, oh, I can make more money, which I didn't know what that would lead into, but I just kept kind of following that, my curiosity, my passion. So over time, once that income actually became substantial, and then I started to do YouTube. Actually, funny enough, once I did YouTube, it didn't take me that much more time, just because, it's like maybe an extra 30 minutes to an hour a day. My videos have always been pretty low production value, so it didn't take that much. So I was able to find the time somehow, just like because it was fun. And then all of a sudden, though, my results actually started to really compound, and like it went exponential there for a few months. So at that point, like I really blew up on YouTube, relatively speaking, right? Because it wasn't like a Mr. Beast blow up or anything, but it was pretty big in the space at the time. And when that happened and my results were compounding, I just decided to drop everything else. I decided to drop school even, which was a really tough decision at the time. But in hindsight, it was like an amazing decision. And that gave me the time to just, go all in. And I did.
And how did you come up with the idea of Academy Lab, and what so-called inspired you or gave you this initial idea to create an e-commerce agency?
Yeah, so Academy Lab spawned actually from a podcast I listened to by Andrew Wilkinson. I don't know if you know him.
He was actually on the podcast for you.
No way, that's insane. Yeah. Wow, that's kind of wild. But yeah, so I saw a podcast by him in the My First Million podcast, and he talked about how he built this design agency, and then that led to all these other companies. And it resonated with me because I don't know, I've always kind of bounced around from thing to thing, all within e-commerce still. Like I had built multiple stores by then, but it felt a little bit unstable. Like, I had stores that would end up like not working anymore. My YouTube channel was also like very stable. I always continued to do that because it was really fun. But the agency idea, I was like, well, you know what? What I'm really good at when it comes to building these stores is marketing them. Like I'm really good at running Facebook ads. And that was kind of the main thing that always remained consistent, like across all of the stores that I built. They were all based on Facebook ads. So, after listening to that interview, it kind of sparked the idea of, like I have this audience, I have these results from my own stores, I have this skill set. Let me, just do this for some of the brands that follow me. Like, let's see what that could actually make a really sustainable income. And then of course that could lead into, building a sort of portfolio, and also learning how some of these brands get to these like 8-figure, 9-figure levels, with basically no risk. And that's one of the things I love most about the agency model personally. It's like, and I don't know if many people view it this way, but like, sure, you can make money, but also you get a lot of like alpha, from really crazy businesses. You learn all their processes, how they do things. And once you do that, you kind of, once you see that, you can't unsee it. Like if you work with a really big brand, or any agency owner that has worked with a big brand, you can probably relate. But some of these businesses, they're kind of a mess, like they're not, it's just like a really big mess. And, you learn that anybody can kind of build a business like that. And it gives you a little bit of confidence to do that. So yeah, that's kind of what sparked the idea. And then I just did it again. Like I'm very much into just like kind of trying things. I put up a post, I made the logo, I made the business. I'm like, oh, this sounds cool. I like this name. Akemi means bright and beautiful. So, I had kind of this big vision for it. Even though it's like a very simple business, like we just run ads, and it worked. So ever since then, I've been running it, and it's been, we built a nice little team. It hasn't grown exponentially, but it's been very steady and consistent, which is really helpful as an entrepreneur. And that's actually what, I really resonated with Andrew Wilkinson. He's like, yeah, this business like has been kind of like Meta Labs or whatever, for him was a really big rock, like a solid foundation that he could build upon. And that's kind of how it's been for me too.
So you started with Akemi. Now you have a portfolio of 6 companies. Yes, you said you can't share some of the brand names. That's fine. But could you share the overall portfolio of what type of businesses you have there? It's all e-commerce?
Yeah, so it's all e-commerce related. One of them is a software though, but it services mainly e-commerce stores. So the stores or the businesses are Akemi Lab, of course, which is an agency, media buying agency. So we mainly focus on Meta and TikTok ads. And we do mainly focus on e-commerce. However, some of our biggest clients actually come from like the insurance space, for example. These are very transferable skills, like running ads and learning how to make really high converting ads. So we've tapped a little bit into the insurance vertical, and it's been really, really eye-opening. So I'm definitely going to dive deeper into that, and I'm building more connections and potential partnerships there that I think will be huge for the holding company. So that's kind of the main, foundation. But then from there, I have equity in a 9-figure brand that I was able to acquire equity through solely my personal brand and results. It was kind of like a perfect timing thing. And keep in mind, this all started last year. I started my holding company last year. So it all has happened kind of fast. But yeah, so this brand, it's a TikTok shop story. That's why, I was able to build a partnership, because I had worked with a variety of TikTok shop brands and helped explode them through TikTok shop ads. And I was posting about it on social media, and then, somebody saw that and we talked, and, long story short, we became partners. And then Smart Reply AI, that's one that I am able to talk about for sure. That's the software. It's basically comment moderation. It's also centers around Facebook ads, because that's one of the biggest pain points that e-commerce store owners, but not just e-commerce store owners, really anybody that runs ads, you'll experience, is that the Facebook comments are really important, actually. They're really undervalued for performance. So if you have really good comments in your comment section, the comment section of your ads are way more likely to perform and convert higher. You're going to get lower costs. Like it's, I don't know, a lot of people don't really think about it, but it's a huge thing. Or inversely, if you have really negative comments in there that you're not catching, that's going to be detrimental to your ad performance. So what this app does is it automates that. It creates an AI agent that just engages with people in the comments. That's really the main use case that was intended. But funny enough, what people have been getting the most value out of it for is just comment moderation. So Facebook has like comment moderation already built in. Like you can set up filters for your page. But it only catches like maybe 50% of things. Sometimes people still get through and comment bad things or spam or whatever. It happens all the time, but this thing catches everything. So that's what the founder of Smart Reply AI, he was able to do multiple case studies recently with some of the users. And that's funny enough what they mentioned as like this is like insane for me. Like we've been able to catch like 500 negative comments that we didn't before, even with like a VA hired and everything. So, and that story is kind of interesting because he was actually one of my followers for a long time on YouTube. And he came to me with this idea, and he was looking for like a promotion on my channel, which I often get from different SaaS tools, since I talk primarily about e-commerce. And I just thought it was a good idea. So I just kind of shot my shot. I'm like, hey, maybe we should partner on this. I have this distribution engine. This is a great idea. I have clients that we could use this for. And yeah, that's how that happened. And I do hope to make more deals like that in the future, if it makes a lot of sense. Then we have a supplement brand that's in the Amazon and Shopify space. So this is my first venture into Amazon, and it's been pretty interesting. There's huge power in Amazon for sure, but what I don't like about Amazon is you don't have a lot of control. It's less control than on Shopify. On Shopify, you don't have like 100% control either because you can get banned on payments. You could get your shop disabled too. But on Amazon, it's even more tedious. Like if you run out of inventory, which happened to us, your listing will get taken down, which is, really detrimental because you build SEO on that listing. Like, making sure that listing is enabled is really critical. So that one is very interesting. It's grown significantly through TikTok as well, through organic creators. And now we're putting a bigger emphasis on Shopify. It's not a huge business. Last month it did do over 100K, but yeah, that we're just running into inventory constraints. And actually, this is something we can talk about later too, but right now it's like a pretty crazy time in e-commerce because of the tariffs. I actually made a video about it today, but it's been very chaotic. So we can talk more about that. But yeah, and then the other two are also e-commerce stores. Those are I'm a lot more private about because there's not really a huge moat around them or anything. It's really just a branded product that we found and incubated, you could say. So it's basically a glorified, like we call it a branded dropshipping store, which to me, the way I see it, in context with like when we talk about people like Andrew Wilkinson or, startups, like in the startup world, I view branded dropshipping as like the perfect MVP because you can launch something so fast and with such lean resources and just simply iterate and improve it. And that's what we've done. So, now we have branded packaging, branded everything, but there's still not a moat. Like anybody could theoretically do that. So I'm much more private about it. But I do have a community and, I'm always posting results in there and I'm sharing like strategies and things of that nature for goodwill and also to get more opportunities similar to the software one that I mentioned. So yeah, that's pretty much everything, but we're still actually launching. So part of the process is incubating. Again, we're still following this like minimum viable product model where we're sourcing something directly from China. It doesn't have to be from China. Like I'm open to US suppliers as well and things like that, especially now. But I have a great connection in China. That's just like the most transparent pricing. He works with all the factories. He's super helpful. He helps me brand things really quickly. So that way we can kind of take what works and just make it better and get results that way. So this year, that's definitely going to be a big focus, incubating more brands, and yeah, scaling what we have as well, and navigating these turbulent times too. That's definitely what I'm thinking about a lot right now.
So you said you just started with all this like last year. I mean, like building this constellation of e-commerce brands and businesses. What was the mindset shift? Because I mean, agency businesses are great cash flow, which you can use to reinvest into other businesses. But I guess when selling this business, the valuation isn't so high. When you just mentioned you are a equity partner and like owning an equity in a valuable 9-figure business. And you said you all started this journey because you wanted to make money, become wealthy. So I think owning this stake in those businesses makes it makes it even better. So what was the mindset shift, or what was the story of getting from agency to getting into businesses?
Yeah, so it all leads back to the original reason for launching an agency. Like when I launched it, it was because I was inspired by Andrew Wilkinson and how he approached it. Like I always, because funny enough, before starting an agency, I was kind of an agency hater. I thought, oh, like this business model sounds terrible. You have to hop on calls, you have to manage clients, and those things are all true. But if my mindset shift from the beginning was like, this is just one business and I'll learn so much from it. And it kind of, I was able to build such an incredible team through it that then I can do more things with. So that was always my mindset from the beginning. So there wasn't this huge shift. Really, what it came down to was like the right opportunity at the right time. So, by this time last year, I started the company in April last year officially, but by this time last year, I was already kind of starting to plan this. So I was kind of putting things in motion with some of my clients. I started to talk about equity. I'm like, hey, I would love to be deeper partners, or maybe we can build something else where we're involved together. So that was really the main mindset shift, was just like, okay, starting to shift from more abundant thinking, I guess, like of something that could be bigger, more scalable. And I do think personally, like agencies can be scaled hugely. Like people do it. Neil Patel is someone else I follow a lot, and his agency is absolutely massive. So I don't think it's like not a scalable business, but I don't know. I guess for me, I like this path that I'm going down, and I'm so interested in so many things, not just the agency. So yeah, I mean, long story short, this was kind of the plan from the beginning, but it just took a little bit to realize it, and to actually like put it into motion. It is a little scary doing multiple things. Sometimes like the pressure of it definitely feels overwhelming. But at the same time, I'm getting better and better at delegating, at setting teams, at building partnerships. So I can see it growing and compounding over time.
You have said that one of the most valuable lessons you've learned running your agency is how powerful selling the right product can be. How long it took to you understand this?
Way too long. So like before the agency, I'd had multiple stores where like they popped off really fast and then died. And then inversely too, I had some stores that I was like so passionate about. I'm like, oh, this product is so cool. I'm going to try to make it work, and, spend so much money on branding, everything. And then just barely anybody cares. It doesn't scale. And then when when the agency happened and I started to get different clients, I had a couple clients that were they were younger than me. And they didn't know anything I didn't know, basically, or at least as far as I could see. They didn't know anything I didn't know, but their product scaled to like $500K a month, and super profitably, and like running the ads for it was extremely easy. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. It's literally just the product that's making such a big difference. And it sounds obvious in hindsight, but that is one of the biggest lessons. And that's why I love testing so much, because I've seen it with my own eyes and with my own stores now too, that there are uphill battle products and like just straight skiing down a mountain products where it's just so easy to make it work because there's so much demand. Maybe it just solves such a massive problem, or like the marketing is really easy to pull off. So that was a huge lesson, and it still is kind of a good reminder. It's kind of just follow the path of least resistance, and you'll have an easier time. Like just in general, I think it's a great lesson to have learned, because now I can put my time in the things that just seem easier to pull off.
When doing research on you, I was watching some of the YouTube videos and things you post, and you talk a lot about various trends and then building products and businesses based on those trends. What's the deeper thought or idea behind this? Because it's probably like a sprint of building this product, launching this product. For how long it will last, and is the idea still the same to build a sustainable business where one day you can hire team members and build the larger ones to maybe sell it, or what's the idea there? Because trends, as we know, they come and go.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think that's why I love what I do on YouTube so much too, and my community, because I have a full team of researchers now that are always posting trends and stores that fit those trends, and then I make content on it. We can potentially launch something on it, but yeah, there's like thousands of trends that we've posted, yet, you know, we've maybe only launched like 4 products like in the last few months. So it is tough to pick them. You know, there's definitely an element of luck. It's kind of like investing in the stock market in a way. Like, you know, you're just trying to get in on a good trend, and hopefully you can ride some of that momentum, or maybe, you know, you think it's a super long-term trend that's like really undervalued right now. But it unfortunately does take a little bit of luck involved. Like, you just have to, I think personally, you can kind of help yourself take a more educated gamble when you're launching something by like thinking about the broader market, the problems you're solving more so, right? Like, what is it that you're actually doing with this product? Is it just, you know, a furry boot, you know, that's just looks cool and it's very trendy right now? You know, not to say that those can't work. Plenty of people launch those products and make them work and do crazy numbers, but that's not going to be as sustainable as, you know, something that helps relieve some pain, right? Like, you know, or a travel product that is like extremely convenient. That's not going to go away anytime soon. So that's generally what I like to do. And also what helps with that too is launching, and this is another reason I love Shopify, is launching a store where you can test other products too. You know, like let's say you launch a product, you spend a lot of time on it and it flops, like it doesn't do very well. Well, you already built the store, right? You already built this sort of brand, minimum viable product brand. Like now it does make sense to just look for variations of that product, or variations of that trend. So yeah, like right now, for example, one of those, a good example would be like the beef tallow trend. It is absolutely blowing up. I don't know if you've heard of beef tallow. It's like beef fat it's like skincare. It's a crazy trend. And I'm thinking, man, like maybe we should launch a store in this vertical. But I actually have multiple friends that have stores in this vertical. I see it at the top of TikTok Shop right now. And at the same time, like, I don't know, I feel like maybe we're reaching the peak, but maybe not at the same time, because the skincare market is so massive. It's literally like $200 billion. So, and maybe it will continue to grow to, you know, multiple hundreds of billions. So it's a great trend, but yeah, man, it's kind of hard. You just have to follow what you think is a good idea. Hopefully try to get in a market that you know has upside potential, very similar to how you would in the stock market. I'm not an expert like trader or anything, but I do see investing in the stock market in a similar way as I do with trends on Shopify. I try to get on things that I know have a lot of upside potential still, that are going to be more long-term, but still that have like a lot of demand right now, because that's what makes it work so well, so fast.
So when it comes to following those trends and then launching a product or a service based on that, for how long do you keep it running before you so-called kill this idea because maybe it's not good enough? And when is the moment you kill it?
Yeah, that's a good idea. A good question. We just recently, for example, killed a product. It was it's a beauty product, and we spent like $500 testing it. So we spent $50 a day on Facebook ads for like 5 days testing like a particular angle. It didn't work. So then what we did is we switched up the landing page a little bit, made the offer a little bit better, like put free products in there, and launched new creatives even. And it still didn't work. Like we got some sales, but it just wasn't giving that. It didn't show that potential that I'm looking for right now. So we killed it. But that doesn't mean we killed the brand idea. Like we still kept this like beauty brand idea, and now we're just launching another product that sort of fits that brand. Because branding is really important. I mean, it's super important. So if you do the hard work to brand something, you might as well like keep trying to make something work for that brand, but maybe just pivot your product. And yeah, that's where e-commerce is pretty cool, is like, you can test a lot of different products because there's always new products coming out of China in particular. Of course, now with the tariffs, it's a little bit harder, but it's not impossible at all. I've already, I had all my suppliers message me this morning with like the updated news, all updated quotes and everything. And like, yeah, it sucks, but it's not going to kill us or anything. But yeah, so I would say $500 is like a good, like stop loss, let's say. I think if you've spent $500 and you're not seeing any sign of life, like take a second to pause and rethink what you're doing, either completely pivot or, make way better ads. There's also like a bunch of metrics that we look at when it comes to the actual ad performance, like, CPMs, CTR, like click-through rate of the ads, hook rate, like how interested are people in the actual video that we're launching, let's say, like how long are they watching? Because that will tell us like maybe we just messed up on the ad part, maybe it's not the product. But again, I'm definitely looking into these products where, you even if it's not a great landing page, not a great ad, it still works. I've seen that happen. So I know that there's just some products that just sell like hotcakes for whatever reason. So, I'm trying to get to find those. So more than $500, usually I cut it if it's not working.
What about those few which I guess started because there was a trend? One example is there was like a teeth whitening trend which came like 10 years ago, and there is an Australian company. I met the founders, Nick and Alex. I was living in Australia like 7-8 years ago. I met them and they started this company called High Smile.
Oh, I love High Smile.
And now it's huge. So how and why do you think they grow so massive? I know they spent like a insane amounts of money on marketing and branding when it comes to Conor McGregor and I think the Kardashian family back then.
Yeah.
Because it was cheaper, and now I didn't follow them for, I think it was like 2 years. And then there was a Australian rich list or something, which came out and they were on the list. I was like, oh my God, that's unreal. Like,
yeah,
awesome.
They're huge. And they're a great example, man, because actually that was a really interesting one because, well, first of all, teeth whitening is like just a evergreen trend, like people will always want cleaner looking, brighter teeth. At least for the foreseeable future, I think that's the case. So it was a great trend, right? Like it was a good problem solving idea. And also like the dentist or getting your teeth whitened is pretty expensive. So there's a really good value proposition. But that brand, High Smile, I mean, I've never met the founders, so I'm not sure. But I at least just from being in the e-com space, I saw them kind of take a huge dip at some point. So like, I do think, yeah, they probably did the huge promotions with influencers, spent a ton of money on celebrities, but then found like stagnation from maybe competition. Yeah, like a lot of people were copying them by then. But then they recently, in the last couple years, just really, really took off again through TikTok. They are like the kings of TikTok, and not a lot of people see it that way because they're not on TikTok Shop. But they're posting like, or at least they were last year, posting like 30 videos a day on their TikTok. And they were using this as a way to test videos and angles. And then whatever would work best, they would amplify it with paid media, which is a really brilliant strategy. So they just went all in on content. Like they had a crazy studio. They were filming some of the most insane hooks ever. And they just absolutely blew up. So they had an evergreen trend. The competition got crazy, saturated market, whatever. But then they found a new trend for within their overall trend, right? Which was TikTok. And they capitalized on it like perfectly. And yeah, I heard that last year they were pushing $1 billion or close to it. And I believe the majority of it came from their TikTok success, because then they're also launching all those ads on Meta. And that was also actually part of our edge so far, is that a lot of the things that work on TikTok, the videos that work on TikTok work extremely well on Meta, whereas the videos that work on Meta don't really work on TikTok. A lot of the content culture and just in general is coming out of TikTok right now. And it was last year too. But these guys were super, super early to that.
I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about your efficient strategy, and that's at least how I see it when doing the research on you. Number one, traffic from social media, YouTube in particular. Number two, folks interested in e-commerce, they're following you. Number three, an agency to provide services to those businesses equals cash flow. Number four, you reinvesting this cash flow into starting new businesses based on following trends. Number five, or you reinvest cash flow into acquiring a minority or the majority of other growing e-commerce brands. And number six, you getting sweat equity based on your skill set, and then you pretty much repeat. Did I miss anything?
No, that's like right on the money. I mean, the only thing that hasn't, like, I actually haven't invested into a business quite yet, in terms of like a business that's already existed, investing money into it to acquire a stake. I have invested money into inventory to like jumpstart a business, things like that. But it's been mostly sweat equity through also like my personal brand. But yeah, that's very much my efficient scaling cycle. It's pretty simple. And I do wonder sometimes, like, I mean, I don't wonder, but like, yeah, people like High Smile. I love their businesses and they're so focused and they just crush it so much. But yeah, I'm really happy at least with what I'm doing. I have a lot of fun, but that's exactly my funnel. And it all kind of does stem from YouTube and the agency as well, just seeing what we can do, what we've been able to do for other clients and how we can replicate that for ourselves.
Imagine if you do that for 10 years.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm trying to think about a lot. And personally, I could see myself doing this for 10 years because I really like it. And it's fun. It puts everything like that I do together. It does make it a constellation. That's why I kind of say that. I've also, I don't know if you've ever heard of Constellation Software. They're like a huge business. And they're super cool to me. And I love how they like have vertically integrated software. I think in the future, Smart Reply was the first one, but I want to keep building more stores because we have a good system for it. But then acquiring software that we vertically integrate into all the stores, I think will be really key too. Because, that there's so many apps that I use on every single one of the stores that we launch that are like so great. I kind of wish I owned them, So sometimes I think about a fund too, because I'm like, man, there's some of these apps that like are doing so well, but like, why not just buy them? If I just had like $100 million, I could just buy them and keep integrating them into the more stores that we launch. But then it gets more complicated, I mean, I'm still just a beginner, I would say, in this world of holding companies, but I think, I have a good cycle. You're right. 10 years from now, who knows where it'll be? Hopefully like massive.
You mentioned raising a fund, and in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned Tai Lopez, and you saw the video. I think Tai Lopez actually raised the fund with Alex Mer, and they started buying distressed like retail brands. And as he's the guy when it comes to, I think, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, now TikTok ads, and he tried to take those retail brands and take them online. They pretty much bought the brand name and their email lists, which is all you need in order to keep growing the business. But I'm afraid they didn't do that well with this. Do you know why? Because you just mentioned as well, you could potentially raise a fund and buy those businesses, but it's not easy.
No, I mean, I think, first of all, with Tai Lopez, like, I mean, I think he is a like really great business owner. All jokes aside, I think he's done pretty insane things and to his own respect. But I think with that one in particular, e-commerce is like super cash heavy and like, just there's so many. So let's say Pier 1, I think was one of them, or Radio Shack. I do remember when he did this, and like the competition is insane and the margins are so thin. So I could see it working, but it's just going to require so much cash. Like, I think you probably need billions to pull off what he was trying to do, which like I think is a great idea, but really hard to do and probably way more cash intensive than he thought. The way I think about it is like, I'm launching these stores in the most lean way possible because e-commerce is really expensive. But if you started out lean, then you can, your initial capital was like not a lot. So you just keep reinvesting. What if I had a fund, what I would do is primarily acquire one softwares, just because the margins are huge, and it's infinitely scalable without the constraints that you experience in e-commerce. So I think that's one reason, is that, retail isn't infinitely scalable and it requires a ton of cash, and there's a ton of competition, etc. That's one thing I would do. And then second, if I did acquire e-com businesses, I would do ones that mainly run organically, so that are experiencing a good amount of revenue, but all organically, like some that have never really ran ads, because then I just know that's like a really easy lever that we can pull. Whereas like Pure One, Radio Shack, I mean, these brands have been everywhere, probably even like Super Bowl ads. I mean, I'm not really sure about that, but I would imagine they've tapped into like everything already. So there's not like anything too new that you could do. So yeah, I think those are maybe some reasons, but I'm not really sure. I mean, who knows what those businesses look like. I know Pure One is having like a little bit of a resurgence. I don't know if he still owns it or he had to sell it for even less or more. But I have been seeing people on TikTok talking about different Pure One products. So maybe they cracked something with TikTok.
Okay. When it comes to your strategy and deal structure when doing those deals, what do you look for in this business before making an investment or wanting to make an investment or making this proposal of we should partner up in a deeper level? And are there any specific like financial or operational attributes that is a signal that is a good fit, or are you simply looking at the founder and at the product?
Yeah, it's mostly founder and product, because also when I haven't experienced this quite yet, but I did have an experience with one founder that had like an incredible software recently, and he was doing so well that he didn't really need me in any way. And, so it didn't really make sense with this kind of deal structure that I'm doing. Like he's already too big basically, and the business is already just too good. Like it's just so efficient. Like it doesn't even need him basically. Like it's just kind of a monster business on its own. It's a software, Shopify software. So yeah, I'm just looking at founders, ideally that know me from my personal brand, because they just kind of know me better. Like you mentioned, you kind of feel like you already know me, so you kind of trust me more. And that gives me a little bit more leverage, but also, yeah, I don't know. I think it helps me in some ways. So that's a great one. And then the idea has to be really good and it has to make sense with my ecosystem, because I want it to be like a constellation where it all relates. I think that's the best way that I can compound. If it's just too outside of my wheelhouse, I don't know. I think it's more of a risk than anything. And I'm trying to reduce risk. So those are the two things. I mean, financially, like, of course, the bigger, the better. If they're trying to make an equity deal with me, that's great for me, because I know that the bigger the business, the bigger the multiple. So if it can be, if I can get a percentage of a bigger business, that's definitely better. But if it's a smaller business, if I think it's a good idea, then I can get a much bigger piece, which can also be very favorable if I can introduce that business into my ecosystem. So those are the things that I'm looking for. It's not too refined. I think I'll have to refine it as I go over time. But for now, it's pretty simple.
And how do you decide whether to acquire, partner, or build this similar business from scratch?
I'm usually thinking about building from scratch, to be honest, because like I said, I have a good system for building these that is very low capital at the beginning. So I prefer that in the software space. However, I'm not very experienced in software, so I'm much more I'm much less likely to want to build that from scratch because they will require a lot of capital from me to do so. I do have a developer on my team at Ecommerce. He's actually a designer, but he's also a great developer. So, we've been messing around with things, but just nothing like concrete or anything. It's really just for fun and just to, maybe in the future do something. But for now, I'm only really looking to start things from scratch, or get sweat equity in things, or like advise. I mean, I've actually never gotten advisory equity. I don't know what that even looks like, but I would love to do that though. I love consulting with people. It's super fun for me. But yeah, that's mainly what I'm looking at when it comes to like huge acquisitions. I'm too scared to do that right now, just because I don't know. I would just rather invest that money into launching something from scratch and just compounding that than I would, or even better team members. Things like that. I think would be more beneficial to me right now. I also don't want to spread myself too thin. I know it sounds counterintuitive with this model, but I'm very mindful still of what I'm doing. Like I'm not, like all of this is pretty intentional. Like I mentioned, it didn't just happen by accident necessarily. So I'm still being careful with the way I'm approaching things. And I think if I just acquire something kind of loosely, it could be detrimental. Like it could put me in a bad position. So I would rather start it from scratch where there's like very little risk. It's mostly time and resource from my team. But we have great systems for it. So it's not nearly as risky for me to launch something from scratch.
And for the investments and acquisitions made through sweat equity, how do you structure these deals to create like long-term great partnership?
Yeah, it's been so far like vesting schedules where like with milestones. So I don't want to take advantage of someone, and nobody wants to get taken advantage of. And these business owners are more savvy these days, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. Maybe in the past you could get like crazy equity for doing nothing, but these days I don't think so, at least with me. So vesting schedules has been a really good way to do it, where I learned this from Cody Sanchez. She I don't know, she said something about how you can create your own terms when you buy a business, or and I interpret that as like if you're getting equity in a business, you can kind of negotiate your terms, and this applies to everything too, even the agency. Some of our client deals are very unique, creative deals. So that's been good. So for example, like if we reach X amount in revenue, then I get this amount, like let's say 5% equity extra. And then maybe we have like 3 tiers of that. That's been quite beneficial so far. And I think that's, maybe I'm not really sure, but I think that's how a lot of people do it at a high level too. And it makes the most sense to me because, you're getting you're getting more upside potential, and they're getting a little bit less risk. So that's why maybe they're more willing to give you a percentage instead of having you invest like a ton of money. And then, yeah, if I just invested a ton of money, that would be like a lot of capital risk, which I have more time right now than capital. So it's like I'm trying to be mindful of, since I'm bootstrapping everything too, I think it's a good idea to do it this way.
And how do you allocate resources like time, capital, talent between your existing portfolio and new ventures or future acquisitions?
Yeah, well, for the new ventures, they're like our stores are super lean, the new ones that we start. So, we have 3 media buyers at Ecommerce, like 3 main media buyers. We have 2 other media buyers that are kind of benched, you could say, like for increased growth. But we follow pretty simple SOPs that are kind of standardized across these stores. So it's not time intensive for me besides the research component and like approvals. It's mostly like, hey, do you think this is good? I'm like, yes, this is great. Let's launch it. Boom, it's launched. Now, yeah, and then for some of these other acquisitions, there's already like a founder. I'm not a majority owner, so there's systems in place where I can help with systems or help drive more traffic, or for example, I integrate my designer from the agency. Like I have him do some work here for a discounted rate or something. That's how I've been doing it so far. But yeah, just trying to create systems is the only way that it's possible, because as much, I try to practice like doing things a lot, like agency or whatever people say. I'm trying to always like take action, but at the same time, there's only so much time in the day, and I still want to keep up with content. My content systems are very lean too. Like I just try to keep it as simple as possible. Although this year I do want to expand that team a little more, but just trying to keep things very lean. We use ChatGPT a lot for things. We're using AI for a lot of things. For example, with videos, like we still use Midjourney for a lot of image generation for ads. And then just like, we have a couple editors that can take different Midjourney images and create a script out of it. And we can launch ads that way. So, you can do a lot with a lean team, especially if like the main focus is meta ads. It doesn't take that much time. It's just Meta is also a super powerful platform in the sense that the main lever to push is creatives, not the actual ad management anymore. So like one really good media buyer can manage a lot of accounts because really his main role is more a creative strategist than it is anything else. Like it's trying to think of better creatives, better copy to write, things of that nature, better offers, as opposed to actually like 4 years ago, a media buyer would spend hours a day on an ad account, like duplicating different ads, whatever. Now it's like much simpler. There's more leverage on the creative component. So that's how I do it. It may not be the best way to do it, but so far it's worked out quite well. And I'm trying to think now more so about how do I incentivize the team to just want to build this vision with me. Maybe some don't want to do that. Maybe they just want to stay at just work on one thing and just give it their all, or, but my main key leaders in Ecommerce, they are willing to work with me on this vision. So, they do help me with some of the stores that we launch, and they are very excited about it. So, I think we can do a lot with a very small team, or at least I hope so, because I'm not the best at managing big teams. Like I've had a bigger team and it's not great. Like I prefer a smaller team. So yeah.
So you've had a very busy last 12, 18 months since you started this holding company. What have been the biggest challenges in you're running into doing all this?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge is, the most obvious one is like there is less attention to detail on some things that I'd like for there to be, because I just can't be everywhere.
For example?
So, for example, with some of these stores, for example, that we've scaled like really fast in the last even like 4 months, there's been like issues on the supply chain side where things are slower than I anticipated. And then that has a trickle down effect where, well, now that happened, now Shopify is giving me trouble because some orders are delayed, or, things like tariffs. Like I knew that there were going to be tariffs, but I didn't have a huge plan for it. I just kind of assumed like, okay, we'll see what happens, but it all happened so fast. So now I'm like, having to put in a lot of effort right now, like really fast to put things together, which is not a huge deal, but I think when you're running a lot of things, it's harder to prepare for the worst. So I think that's been kind of the biggest struggle, has been making sure that everything is bulletproof. It's harder to do because you have a lot of things as opposed to just like, okay, this one business. But the bright side of that is like, if I did just have this one business, it could have been much worse, because I'm fully relying on this, and, something like this could really be detrimental. So having multiple things in that way is kind of helpful because, well, now I have cash flow from here that I can use for this, to hire here, or, this thing is doing much better. This app is actually starting to grow a lot, because more people are experiencing this issue. That kind of happened with Smart Reply a little bit with TikTok. Everybody was freaking out about TikTok being banned. And then, I have a lot of friends that have huge TikTok shops, and they could have been very affected by that, right? Luckily, it came back. But that helped Smart Reply grow because people were kind of trying to diversify outside of TikTok, things like that. So I think that's been one of the biggest hurdles, is just like not as much attention to detail, which I'm getting back to. I'm trying to be more detail oriented, while still, I'm just trying to find that balance, like of being very detail oriented, but at the same time, not being afraid to launch things, and test, even if it's not perfect. That's been a big challenge. I think, delegation is always has been a challenge for me, at least in the last year. Like I've had to fire people, which is really hard. I mean, for me at least, I feel like I hold on to people too long, which is not, it's not nice, but at the same time, like your business is like, you're putting everything into your business. So, it's actually not fair to have people that, are just not going to perform how you want. And that's been pretty difficult. Like managing people is very hard. So that's something I'm constantly trying to get better at now. I'm putting in a lot of time into learning how to delegate and set up systems, so that everything is just like super, super smooth all the time. That's not super realistic, but I recently joined Founder OS, which is like a really cool program. I don't know if you know Matt Gray, but he's a really cool guy. He's got a big personal brand now. And I joined his program to, learn how to set up systems and delegate better. So I'm constantly taking action. So I know delegation is going to be very key. So I'm trying to get as good as possible at it. Because it has been a bit of a struggle in the past. Just, I think I'm a little too nice sometimes. And that can be a problem. And it's not about being mean, but it's just about being like, a little bit more firm, I think is a better way to put it, just be firm.
So you've been in this e-commerce space for many, many, many years now. It's a hot space. I'd seen this as being always trendy. Lots of young people want to do this, want to be in this. And when I'm looking at you, subs are growing, revenues are growing, portfolio is growing. You seem to know something others don't. What is it? What do you think is it? And why what you do works so well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, it's just like massive imperfect action and consistency. I mean, if you look at my channel, like you'll see consistent videos like every week for sure. I've posted every week for so many years. And that's kind of how I do everything. Like I'm just when I'm doing something, I'm pretty consistent at it. And even if it's a variety of things, like I'm able to allocate a little bit of time into everything. And I think maybe that's what I know that others don't, is like just the power of consistency. And even if it's just small little things, like I literally would just tell myself for a while, like, oh, well, if I remember I told my dad this, like when I started this Blue Dot Holdings, I was like, it's kind of crazy because maybe just making a YouTube video, like, every week is going to help me build like $1 billion company. Like it sounds crazy to say that, but just that small little bit of consistency. So I think that's been my thing. It's crazy what consistency can do for you. So even in the context of like testing products, for like launching products, if you just launch a product every week, even if you fail 50 times, like in a year, like that 51st time, like that can make up for all of it. So the consistency is a huge piece, man. I think people are not consistent enough. They will take a super long break, then they come back and by then someone else has already tested like 5 other ideas, so consistency, I think, is probably the thing that I know that other people don't. And I learned that way before entrepreneurship. I was big into skateboarding growing up. And I wanted to be a really good skater. So in order to do that, you just have to skate a lot. Like it's pretty simple, but you just have to go skate a lot and you get good. Yeah, I played the guitar for a while. I still do a bit. And I wanted to play like certain solos. And it's like, okay, well, in order to do that, I just have to play the guitar a lot, and be very consistent. And that doesn't mean just play the guitar all day, one day. Like that doesn't really get you too far. It's better to, at least for me, to just play like 30 minutes, but, for 6 months every day, as opposed to, once a week for like, 10 hours. So that's been my thing, man. Just like small steps, but very consistent. Just like never stopping. Just I never stop. I'm just taking small steps every day, and then things are happening. So
you mentioned in order to learn about systems and delegation, you decided to buy a program. So has it always been like this? When you see you don't know something, you buy something, you try to learn about it, you buy a book, you watch an interview, or what do you consume and what do you learn, and how has it been?
Yeah, that's that is how it's always been. I mean, even from the very beginning, when I saw that Tai Lopez ad with that guy with print on demand, I bought his course. I mean, I did try at first by myself, and I lost money. So I was like, let me buy the course, see what it's all about, and it gave me some sort of direction. I bought many courses since then, and oftentimes actually, like when it didn't even, I mean, I guess it made sense, but I've spent like, for example, 10K on a program. That first year where I quit everything, or I quit school and my job to pursue entrepreneurship full time, I bought like a 10K program, and I had maybe like 30K to my name, and that was a lot. So I was like, oh man. That was kind of crazy in hindsight, but it kind of worked out. Like sometimes it's just, I really think information is like the most valuable thing in the world. I think Kanye said this, which is kind of silly, but he said in an interview, he said, information is more valuable than water because with the right information, you'll know where the water is. And it's kind of a silly quote, but I do agree, to some extent that like information is just so key. So I'm always consuming content. I'm always watching podcasts. I mean, I'm really excited to build a connection with you because I know I could learn a lot. So yeah, just in general, I'm always consuming podcasts. I'm always reading books for sure. I'm trying to always get as much free information as I can. But I've learned over the years that, real alpha is found a lot of times in these paid communities or in networks, right? Just in networks where, yeah, sometimes you got to pay to get that information. And sometimes it's not even about the information so much, but when you pay to like learn something, I don't know, it just helps you. It's just a motivator, it helps you. It puts your back against the wall, kind of makes you really do that thing. So for example, with Founder OS, like, as soon as I paid that invoice, it was a lot of money. Like it's the most expensive program I've ever bought. It was like a college tuition, basically. But as soon as I did it, I was like, just so motivated to delegate and systemize. So like before I even started consuming a lot of the content, I'd already done so much. Where the coaches were like, "Wow, like that's pretty cool. Like you're almost there, basically. You've made a lot of progress." So yeah, sometimes. It's kind of like a bet on yourself, like you're investing in yourself. And I think that's the best asset, because, you live in your mind. Hopefully you can learn as much as you can when you make mistakes, and I think it's a smart idea to pay to learn things that, otherwise you wouldn't learn. I guess the last thing on that is like, I feel like I learn the best sometimes whenever things go wrong, or like when, let's say an analogy is like, I touch the stove and I get burned. Like, those are the times where you learn the most, at least for me. And paying to learn is kind of like that, but without actually like getting hurt, maybe financially a little bit. But it's kind of like that where, you're taking a hit financially to learn something. And then because of that, like it really forces you to learn that. That's how it's been for me. So I always do that. And I just try to consume as much information for free as I can. I mean, I love entrepreneurship. It's so fun. And I love meeting people and learning from them. I love learning from older people as well, or people that are more experienced in certain things. It just feels like a hack.
Okay, Arie. Quick fire questions. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book? Probably Dune, actually. I really love the Dune series. I read them all. It's just so like forward thinking, but also still so relevant to like today's time. Like even just with like computer chips and this, I don't know if you've read Dune or seen the movies, but with like the spice and Arrakis and like, Taiwan and their chips. I'm just like, wow, it's all so relevant in some way. It's really interesting. So I love Dune, but as far as like business books, I really loved The Snowball, Warren Buffett's biography. I really loved Elon Musk's biography by Walter Isaacson. I've read all of Walter Isaacson's books. Like the Steve Jobs one was amazing too. I read the Albert Einstein one. That one was amazing too. But the Elon Musk one in particular was really interesting to me because he's not like a holding company guy, but he is building so many things. And I see this all the time. People are like, how can he possibly do that? Like, how can we be like a top Diablo player and then at the same time be building like $3 trillion companies? And like, the answer is like pretty much he's super passionate about all of it. First of all, like he's just super passionate. And second of all, like he's a master delegator. Like he's just unbelievably good at setting up teams. And that's kind of his like, you could say like a superpower, like his talent, but I feel like he just learned that over time. You know, I don't think you're just born with this ability to delegate. And through that biography, I learned that, you know, I think that's true because he was like bullied as a child. Like he wasn't like a leader or anything. He's kind of a loner. So he wasn't like naturally someone that's like, you know, building teams or anything. I think he just learned it over time that, you know, you have limited time and some people can do things better than you can also. So it's better to delegate. So I really love that book, the Elon Musk one, for that particular reason. It just kind of removed some limiting beliefs that I think a lot of people may have. But Dune is for sure my favorite book right now, just in terms of like pure joy reading it. It's just so fun and entertaining. So I read all of them. You can maybe see them back there. I think that's probably my answer.
What's the best investment advice you've ever got?
The best investment advice? I would say I really liked Warren Buffett's advice of, I mean, it's kind of simple, but it's just really foundational for me, is be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. It's just a really good way, a really good framework where I think it's just applicable to everything. And I love, you know, earlier I talked about how like there are parallels between how you invest in the stock market and how you launch a product in e-commerce, at least to me. And I think, like right now, it's a very fearful time for every e-commerce store owner because these tariffs, like they didn't come out of nowhere, but they just happened so fast. Like it just was so fast, but I'm not super worried. I made a video about it today. I talked to my connections in China, all of them. And I mean, they don't seem worried. They're just like, oh, we're back to work from the holidays. Like, let's go. You know, they're not very worried. They're just moving, adapting. So I think these are the times where everybody's super fearful, but I'm trying to launch more things now because I know that this is going to take out a lot of big players. I think the people that are mostly I said this in my video, but I think the people that are going to be mostly affected by this, unfortunately, is the bigger brands that are already treading on 5% margins and they're doing like 100 million in revenue. And a 10% tariff on that is like, now you're losing, like 3 million or whatever a year, and you can't sustain that. So I think a lot of brands are going to get taken out, which, it's a very volatile time, but that presents a huge opportunity for brands that are just getting started. So like, if you're someone like me where you can launch things with relatively low risk, then the tariffs are not that big of a deal because you can just price that in. It's not like you already have this huge payroll and this huge your margins are so thin that now this completely takes you out. So yeah, I think that's probably the best one. And I think another Warren Buffett one that I really liked was it's better to have a wonderful business at a fair price than like a fair business at a wonderful price. I think that's a really good one because just in general, like when I see the stock market, like the top companies are, like Meta and Shopify is a good example. I have a good amount of Shopify stock that I've been buying over time just because I do everything on Shopify. And their leadership is really good in my opinion. I'm very close with them through my YouTube channel too. Like I talk to their internal teams a decent amount, with their PR teams. Like I've been very involved with Shopify for a while. So they're a wonderful company, right? And everyone's always told me they're so overvalued. They're so overvalued. Like, it doesn't make sense. But there's such a great company and there's nothing else like it. So I've just been buying, and it's done super, super well. And I see the same thing with like Nvidia. Meta is another great one. Like, everyone's like, oh, it's so overvalued. Tesla, even, everybody says it's incredibly overvalued. And I mean, it's true maybe from like foundational principles, but they're wonderful businesses, you know? So it's still worth it to have them. Whereas maybe other businesses that are like worse, maybe they're at amazing prices, but like, I don't know, I could see them just keep going down because they're just not great businesses.
I still have one follow-up question, last one, regarding the tariffs. How long you think it will take when we start seeing those things to happen? Obviously, it very depends of each company on how they've been able to manage their cash flow over the last 5-10 years when it comes to big brands. But what is your thought?
I mean, I think we're going to see it pretty fast because this happened fast. I think it will get progressively worse, or like we'll see the domino effect, like, throughout the year. But I wouldn't be too shocked to hear like next month some companies putting out some like big statements of like, oh, we're like struggling. I mean, I'm not entirely sure because I don't know exactly how these companies work like from the inside. But I would imagine so many people are like putting out crazy fires right now. And especially there's so many bloated companies out there. So it's like the mix of tariffs and AI, like, oh man, I think it's gonna happen. This year is gonna be massive, like super chaotic, especially the next few months going into the summer. I think we'll see a lot of these effects. But the other thing is we don't really know what's gonna happen, right? Because it could all get halted, right? Like Trump did halt the tariffs for Canada and Mexico for 30 days. Well, they actually put some measures in, but Canada and Mexico are different than China. So I don't know if China is going to be the same way. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more back and forth negotiation. Again, these are speculations. We don't really know, but I think so. So because of that, it could get better really fast, or it could get worse. And if it gets worse, then of course, then the effect's going to be even worse and maybe faster. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's definitely like a crazy, crazy time to be an e-com store owner. But again, I'm very, I feel like another really good quote. I hate to do this so much, but Ray Dalio, he's like, I love this quote. He said, "It helps to be still like a ninja in a street fight in the face of chaos," something like that. I may have butchered it. But I like that quote because that's kind of how I feel right now. I'm trying to be like as zen as possible in the face of this massive chaos. This is huge disruption in the e-com space, but I do think it's going to present a ton of opportunity, but it is going to take a lot. It's going to be brutal. It's definitely going to be brutal.
Arie, you're big on social, big on YouTube. Where can people find you if people want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at Arie Scherson. That's my channel, ARIESCHERSON. Or you can just look up Arie Ecom and you'll see me. I have a big channel. On X, you can find me at Arie's Notebook. That's my X handle. That's sort of how I use X a little bit, as a sort of notebook of notes. And then on Instagram, same thing. Those are all my platforms. I'm on TikTok too and LinkedIn, but I'm not very like LinkedIn. I just have somebody that reposts all my X content. I'm not really too active on there myself, but I do look at all my DMs elsewhere. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'd love to connect.
Awesome. Well, again, congrats on your success. It's awesome what you've built. I'm very excited to have you on next year at the same time to see what you've built. And again, thanks a lot for the call.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I really appreciate that a lot. Just, I know you know so much and you get to talk to all these incredible people. So it's truly been an honor and I can't wait to continue to connect.